The night did not feel normal. Even before the first sound, Elara knew something was wrong. The wind outside her cabin moved in strange patterns, like it was circling instead of passing through. The forest beyond her window, usually filled with distant animal calls, had fallen into a silence so deep it felt almost unnatural. Not peaceful. Not calm. Empty. Elara stood near the dying fire, slowly stirring crushed herbs in a stone bowl. The flame flickered weakly, casting uneven shadows across the walls of her isolated cabin. Bundles of dried plants hung from the ceiling beams, swaying slightly even though no wind had entered the room. That alone made her pause. Her hand stopped. She listened. Nothing. No wolves. No night birds. No rustling leaves. Only the sound of her own breath. Elara slowly set the bowl down. Not again, she whispered to herself. Because silence in the forest never meant peace. It meant something was watching. She reached for the knife resting beside the table, not because she expected to fight, but because survival in her life had always required expecting the worst. The cabin creaked. Once. Then again. A faint scratching sound followed. At first, she thought it was just branches scraping the outer wall. The storm outside had been growing stronger all evening. Snow often dragged fallen limbs against wood. But then, scratch. Closer. Lower. Not random. Intentional. Elara turned slightly toward the door. Her heartbeat did not rise yet. Not fear. Not yet. Experience told her fear came after confirmation. The scratching stopped. Complete silence returned. Then, a soft whimper. That changed everything. Elara froze. Because that was not wind. That was not an animal lost in the storm. That was pain. Slowly, carefully, she stepped toward the door. Each movement controlled, quiet, practiced. Her bare feet barely touched the cold wooden floor. Another whimper came. Shorter this time. Weaker. The sound of something running out of time. Elara placed her hand on the door. Paused. The forest beyond had gone so silent it felt unnatural again. Even the storm seemed to be holding its breath. She pulled the door open. And the cold hit her like a blade. Snow rushed inside immediately, scattering across the wooden floor. But Elara did not feel it. Because her eyes had already locked onto something far worse than the cold. A small shape lay directly in front of her doorstep. A wolf pup. Barely alive. Its fur was soaked with melted snow and blood that had frozen into dark patches against its pale body. One of its legs was twisted at an unnatural angle, as if something had crushed it before abandoning it. But that was not the most disturbing part. Elara stepped forward slowly, and saw the cloth. Wrapped loosely around its tiny body. Deep crimson. Heavy fabric. Royal embroidery stitched along the edges. Her breath stopped. The Alpha King's crest. Elara's hand tightened around the doorframe. No, she whispered. It was impossible. Royal bloodlines did not end up in the snow outside forgotten healer cabins. Not unless someone wanted them erased. The pup tried to move. Its body trembled violently. A weak, broken sound escaped its throat. Elara should have stepped back. Should have closed the door. Should have walked away. Everything inside her, instinct, memory, fear, screamed at her to leave it there. Because anything tied to the royal pack meant danger. Death. Punishment. War. But then the pup lifted its head slightly. And opened its eyes. Gold. Not normal wolf eyes. Not even close. There was something inside them that felt too aware. Too old. Too intelligent for something so small and broken. Elara felt it immediately. A pressure in her chest. Like something inside her body had recognized something outside it. The pup whimpered again. A sound so weak it barely existed. And something inside Elara broke. Damn it, she muttered. She knelt slowly into the snow. Her instinct screamed louder now. Do not touch it. Do not bring it inside. Do not get involved. But her hands moved anyway. When her fingers touched its fur, the world shifted. Not physically. Emotionally. A pulse surged through her hand, sharp, violent, unnatural. It was not warmth. Not healing. Not normal life energy. It felt like pressure behind reality itself. For a split second, Elara saw something. Fire. A massive throne room burning in darkness. A crown falling into blood. A child screaming without sound. Then it was gone. She gasped and pulled her hand back instinctively. The pup collapsed slightly, exhausted, as if even that contact had drained it further. Elara stared at her trembling fingers. "What are you?" she whispered again. But the forest gave no answer. Only silence. Then, far away, a howl. Another. Then several more. But these were not normal howls. They were sharp. Uneasy. Almost. Warning. Elara slowly looked toward the trees. Her stomach tightened. Something had seen her. Or seen the pup. Or both. The forest was no longer quiet. It was waiting. She brought him inside. Against every rule she had ever learned about survival. Against every instinct shaped by years of rejection and pain. Elara wrapped the small body in thick cloth and placed him near the fire. The pup barely reacted. Its breathing was shallow, unstable, fragile. She crouched beside it, watching carefully. The markings beneath its skin were clearer now in firelight. Dark veins. Moving faintly. Like something alive beneath the surface. Elara reached for herbs automatically, grounding herself in routine. Medicine. Healing. Control. If she focused on healing, she would not focus on fear. That was how she survived. She crushed leaves, mixed powders, prepared salves. But her eyes kept returning to the pup. Because something about it did not make sense. The broken leg. Already showing signs of repair. Not fully. But slightly. Too slightly. No natural healing process moved that fast. Elara leaned closer. The pup's chest rose and fell unevenly. Its eyes remained half open, watching her. Not afraid. Observing. Studying. Like it was trying to understand why she had not abandoned it yet. Elara exhaled slowly. "I don't know what you are," she said quietly, "but you're going to die if I don't help you." The pup made a soft sound. Almost like agreement. That unsettled her more than anything else. The night passed slowly. Storm outside grew worse. Wind slammed against the cabin walls, shaking old wood and rattling loose nails. But inside, the fire held steady. Barely. Elara stayed awake. She did not trust sleep when something unknown was inside her home. Hours passed. The pup stopped trembling at some point. Then started again. Then stopped. Elara kept checking its breathing. Each time expecting it to disappear. But it didn't. At some point near dawn, she noticed something strange. The firelight reflected differently near the pup. Warmer. Stronger. As if the flame itself was reacting to it. Elara frowned. She leaned closer. The pup's markings were still faintly moving beneath its skin. Slow. Like a heartbeat that did not belong to its body. She reached out carefully again. Paused. Then touched its head. Nothing happened this time. No vision. No surge. Just warmth. Real warmth. The pup leaned slightly into her hand. And Elara froze. Because it trusted her. That was the most dangerous thing of all. By morning, the storm had passed. But the silence remained. Elara stepped outside briefly, scanning the forest. Nothing moved. No animals. No tracks except her own from last night. And the small prints she had carried inside. She exhaled slowly. Something about this did not feel like chance. It felt placed. Deliberate. Like someone had left the pup exactly where it would end up here. At her door. She went back inside. The pup was awake again. More alert now. Still weak. But watching her with those strange golden eyes. Elara crouched down. "You need a name," she muttered. The pup tilted its head slightly. As if listening. Elara sighed. "Caelan." The moment she said it. The pup blinked. Once. Slowly. And something inside the room shifted again. Not visible. But felt. Like the air had recognized the name. Elara did not notice. Not yet. Days passed. Then weeks. The pup did not die. That alone should have been impossible. Instead, it changed. Slowly. Painfully. Its body grew stronger at a pace that did not match nature. The twisted leg remained slightly deformed, but no longer stopped movement. It walked sooner than it should have. Ran sooner than it should have. Watched too carefully for something so young. Elara told herself it was luck. Healing herbs. Strong instincts. But deep down, she knew she was lying. Because sometimes at night, when she thought he was asleep, the markings beneath his skin shifted, and the fire flickered in response, like it was listening. The first time Caelan looked at her and said something without speaking, it was during winter's end. Elara was chopping herbs when she felt it. A pressure. Behind her mind. She turned slowly. Caelan stood near the fire, watching her. And for a brief moment, she understood something that had no words. Not a voice. Not language. Just intent. A question. Why am I here? Elara dropped the knife slightly. What? She whispered. Caelan tilted his head. Then the feeling vanished. Gone as quickly as it came. Elara stared at him. Her hands slowly tightened. Something was wrong. Not wrong like injury. Wrong like truth hiding beneath reality. She did not know it yet. But that was the moment everything changed. Because from that night onward, Elara stopped seeing him as something she rescued, and started fearing what she might have brought into her home. The forest no longer felt like it belonged to them. That was the first thing Elara noticed as Caelan grew older. It wasn't something she could easily explain. It was not a sound or a sight. It was a feeling, subtle at first, like the world holding its breath whenever he stepped outside. Animals changed behavior around him. Birds stopped singing. Wolves no longer howled near the cabin. Even the wind felt different, like it bent around him instead of passing through. Caelan did not notice. Or perhaps he did, but had learned too young not to ask questions that brought painful answers. He was 8 the first time Elara truly understood that he was not normal. It happened in the snow. A quiet morning. The kind that usually felt peaceful. Caelan had been playing near the tree line, dragging a stick through fresh snow, leaving uneven lines behind him. Elara watched from the cabin window while preparing herbs. Her life had become this now, watching him, waiting, pretending everything was fine. But then, the forest changed. 3 wolves appeared at the edge of the trees. Not hunting. Not attacking. Watching. Still. Unblinking. Caelan noticed them immediately. He stopped playing. The stick dropped from his hand. For a moment, none of them moved. The wolves lowered their heads slightly. Not in aggression. In recognition. Elara's stomach tightened. That's impossible, she whispered. Wolves did not bow to children. Unless they feared them. Caelan slowly took a step forward. The wolves did not retreat. Instead, they stepped back. Just one step. But it was enough. Caelan tilted his head, confused. Elara opened the door sharply. Caelan, come inside. Her voice broke the silence. The wolves vanished instantly into the forest. As if they had never been there. Caelan turned toward her. Did I do something wrong? Elara hesitated. That question always hurt more than she expected. No, she said quietly. Just, stay close today. But even as she said it, she knew it was too late. Something had already begun. Days passed. Then weeks. And the incidents grew stranger. A broken branch in Caelan's hand would sometimes heal back into place within seconds. Water in a cup would ripple without wind. Fire would flare when he stared at it too long. He never controlled it. That was the worst part. It responded to him like instinct. Like something inside the world recognized him before he understood himself. Elara began staying awake longer at night. Watching him sleep. Watching his chest rise and fall. Watching the faint dark markings beneath his skin, now spreading slowly across his arms like veins of ink. She tried herbs. Healing rituals. Old pack remedies she had once been taught before they cast her out. Nothing worked. Nothing stopped it. And worst of all, it wasn't hurting him. Not yet. The village noticed him next. It started with whispers. Then silence when he entered rooms. Then avoidance. Children no longer played near him. Adults no longer spoke directly to him unless necessary. And Caelan noticed everything. He always noticed everything. One evening, he stood outside the cabin alone while snow fell softly around him. Elara found him there after finishing work. He was staring at his reflection in a frozen puddle. Silent. Still. Too still for a child. Elara, he said without turning around. Yes. Why don't they like me? The question was simple. But it cracked something inside her. She stepped closer slowly. They don't understand you. That's not true, he replied immediately. Too quick. Too sharp. Elara stopped. Caelan finally turned around. His eyes had changed again. The gold was deeper now. More intense. Almost glowing in the fading daylight. They're scared of me, he said. Elara opened her mouth. But nothing came out. Because he was right. That night, the sky darkened earlier than usual. Storm clouds gathered over the mountains. The air felt heavier. Unstable. Elara noticed it first in the animals. Birds flying away in chaotic patterns. Wolves howling far beyond the valley, but not in rhythm. In distress. Something was wrong. Something approaching. Caelan sat near the fire, unusually quiet. Elara, he said softly. She looked up from her work. What is it? I dreamed again. Her fingers paused. What kind of dream? Caelan hesitated. Then, I was in a place of fire. Elara's chest tightened slightly. And? There was someone calling me, he said. But I couldn't see their face. Silence fell between them. The fire crackled louder than it should have. And what did they say? Elara asked carefully. Caelan frowned. I don't know. Then quieter. But I felt like I already knew them. Elara looked away. Her hands tightened around the herb bundle. She did not want to ask the next question. But she had to. Did anything else happen in the dream? Caelan nodded slowly. I broke something. His voice lowered. Something inside me. That same night, everything changed. The pack came. It started with footsteps. Not loud. Controlled. Too organized to be a normal patrol. Elara noticed instantly. She stepped outside the cabin with her knife hidden beneath her cloak. The forest was no longer silent. Now it was tense. Waiting. Then she saw them. 5 wolves. Standing at the edge of the clearing. Not attacking. Not speaking. Just watching the cabin. Elara's heart sank. Pack enforcers. Something had brought them here. The lead wolf stepped forward. Alpha Darius. Older now. Stronger. His presence alone shifted the air. Elara, he called. She did not lower her guard. You don't come here unless something is wrong. Darius's gaze moved past her. Toward the cabin. Toward Caelan. We heard rumors, he said quietly. About a child. Elara's grip tightened. There are no children here. Darius didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her carefully, as if reading every lie she had ever told. Then, the forest reacts when he moves, he said. Elara froze slightly. That doesn't mean anything. It means everything, Darius replied. The silence between them stretched. Then he stepped closer. Show me. Elara's instinct screamed. No. That single word changed everything. The wolves behind Darius shifted. Elara felt it immediately. Tension rising. Danger building. But before anything could escalate, the cabin door opened behind her. Slowly. Elara turned sharply. Caelan stood there. Barefoot. Watching the wolves. Not afraid. Just observing. The entire clearing went still. Even Darius stopped moving. His eyes locked onto Caelan instantly. Something unreadable passed through his expression. Recognition. Or shock. Elara noticed it immediately. What is this? She demanded. Darius didn't answer her. He was staring at Caelan like he was seeing a ghost. Impossible, he whispered. Caelan tilted his head slightly. The wind around them stopped completely, like the world itself had frozen. Darius took one step forward. Elara, he said slowly, voice tense. Where did you find him? Elara felt panic rise. I told you already. You lied, he interrupted sharply. The wolves behind him growled softly. Caelan didn't move. But the air around him changed. The fire inside the cabin flickered violently. Elara felt it. That pressure again. The same thing from years ago. From the night she first touched him. Darius lowered his voice. That child is not ordinary. Elara stepped forward. He's just a boy. But Darius shook his head. No, he said quietly. He's something the kingdom buried. Elara's blood turned cold. The words meant nothing on the surface. But everything underneath them felt like truth. Darius stared at Caelan again. And this time, his voice dropped even lower. The Alpha King's bloodline does not produce children like him by accident. Silence shattered everything. Caelan blinked slowly. Alpha King, he repeated softly. The word did not belong in his world. But something inside him reacted anyway. A faint pulse beneath his skin. Elara noticed instantly. No, she said sharply. Stop talking. But it was too late. Darius had already confirmed what she feared. The pack was not here by rumor. They were here by knowledge. Caelan stepped forward slightly. Who is the Alpha King? Elara moved instantly between them. Caelan, go inside. But he didn't move. For the first time. He looked directly at Darius. And the air changed again. Not violently, but deeply. Like something ancient recognizing its reflection. Darius exhaled slowly. It's him, he whispered. Elara's heart stopped. No, she said again, louder this time. You're wrong. But Darius didn't look away. He should have been dead, he said. Years ago. Caelan's voice came softly. I don't understand. Darius finally met his eyes. And what he said next broke the world Elara had tried so hard to protect. You were not abandoned, he said quietly. You were hidden. The wind stopped completely. Even the fire froze mid-flame. Elara's breath shook. Caelan stood still, trying to understand words too heavy for his age. Hidden. Not unwanted. Not discarded. Hidden. Then, somewhere deep inside him, something answered. And for the first time in his life, Caelan felt the world looking back. The silence after Darius's words did not end. It stayed. Heavy. Unnatural. Even when the wind returned, even when the wolves slowly shifted their stance, even when Elara forced herself to breathe again, it still felt like something inside the world had broken and was pretending not to notice. Caelan stood motionless near the cabin doorway. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. Something inside him had changed the moment he heard it. Hidden. Not abandoned. Not unwanted. Hidden. The word repeated itself in his mind like an echo that did not belong to him. Elara stepped in front of him immediately, blocking his view of the pack. Go inside, she said again, quieter this time. Controlled. But her voice carried fear she could not hide anymore. Caelan didn't move. I want to understand, he said. Darius watched him carefully. Not like a child. Not like a threat. Like a truth that had resurfaced too early. Elara, Darius said slowly, ignoring Caelan. You need to listen carefully. I don't need to listen to anything you say, she snapped. But even she knew her voice lacked strength. Because she had seen it. The recognition in his eyes. The way the air had reacted. The way even trained pack warriors had gone still. Darius exhaled. The kingdom will come, he said. Not because of rumors. Because of confirmation. Elara's stomach tightened. What confirmation? Darius didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Caelan. The markings, he said finally. Caelan instinctively pulled his sleeve down slightly. But it was too late. Darius had already seen them clearly. The black veins beneath his skin. The shifting patterns. The unnatural symmetry that did not belong to any known wolf bloodline. "They are waking again," Darius whispered. Elara stepped forward sharply. "Stop talking like he's not here." Darius finally met her eyes. "I'm talking like he is exactly why we are here." The forest behind them felt colder suddenly, as if it understood the weight of the conversation. Caelan took a small step forward. "Why does everyone keep looking at me like that?" he asked quietly. No anger. Only confusion. That made it worse. Darius hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Because what stood in front of him was not supposed to exist. Not like this. Not alive. Not unaware. "Elara," Darius said again, softer. "You didn't just find a pup." Elara felt her chest tighten painfully. "I raised him," she said firmly. Darius nodded slowly. "And that is exactly why you are in danger now." That night, the pack did not leave. They camped at the edge of the forest. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Elara stood inside her cabin with Caelan beside her, the fire burning low between them. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Outside, shadows moved between the trees. Not attacking. Observing. Like the entire world had shifted its attention to this one small home. Caelan finally broke the silence. "Am I something bad?" The question hit Elara harder than any blade. She turned toward him immediately. "No," she said quickly. "No, you are not." But Caelan's eyes didn't believe her. They looked at me like I was. Elara struggled for words. Because what could she say? That the pack feared him. That the kingdom wanted him. That she herself sometimes woke at night terrified of what he might become. She stepped closer slowly. "You are not what they think," she said carefully. "You are what you choose to be." Caelan stared at the fire. "I don't feel like I choose anything," he whispered. That silence hurt more than the words. Because she knew he was right. Something inside him was changing without permission. Something neither of them understood. At midnight, everything broke. The first scream came from outside the camp. Then another. Then silence. Elara's head snapped toward the window instantly. Caelan stood beside her, tense. "What is that?" he asked. Elara didn't answer. She already knew. The pack was moving. She grabbed her cloak. "Stay inside," she ordered immediately. Caelan stepped forward. "I want to come with you." "No." Her voice was sharp now. Final. But Caelan didn't move. "I heard them scream," he said quietly. Elara hesitated. That was the problem. He always heard everything. Even things he should not understand. Outside, the forest was no longer quiet. Now it was chaos contained. Elara stepped out into the snow. The camp was disturbed. Fires overturned. Tracks scattered everywhere. But no bodies. Only signs of panic. Darius stood in the center, his expression hardened. "What happened?" Elara demanded. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the forest. Something had passed through them. Fast. Silent. Unnatural. "We didn't come here alone," Darius said finally. Elara's blood turned cold. "What does that mean?" Darius turned slightly. And for the first time, fear appeared in his voice. "Royal hunters are already inside the territory." The words did not feel real at first. Royal hunters were not ordinary soldiers. They were not pack warriors. They were trained directly under the Alpha King's inner circle. Sent only for matters involving bloodline threats. Elara felt her stomach drop. "They found him," she whispered. Darius didn't answer immediately. That silence was answer enough. From the edge of the trees, a new sound emerged. Slow footsteps. Controlled. Perfect rhythm. Not wolves. Not pack. Something else. Figures stepped into the moonlight. 7 of them. Black armor. Silver markings along their weapons. Their presence felt heavier than the forest itself. Elara's breath caught. Caelan stood at the cabin doorway behind her now. He had come out without permission. Again. One of the hunters stepped forward slightly. Their leader. Scarred across the throat. Eyes sharp enough to cut through silence. He looked at Elara first. Then past her. Directly at Caelan. And something in his expression changed. Very briefly. Recognition. It disappeared immediately. The words did not feel real at first. Royal hunters were not ordinary soldiers. They were not pack warriors. They were trained directly under the Alpha King's inner circle. Sent only for matters involving bloodline threats. Elara felt her stomach drop. They found him, she whispered. Darius didn't answer immediately. That silence was answer enough. From the edge of the trees, a new sound emerged. Slow footsteps. Controlled. Perfect rhythm. Not wolves. Not pack. Something else. Figures stepped into the moonlight. 7 of them. Black armor. Silver markings along their weapons. Their presence felt heavier than the forest itself. Elara's breath caught. Caelan stood at the cabin doorway behind her now. He had come out without permission. Again. One of the hunters stepped forward slightly. Their leader. Scarred across the throat. Eyes sharp enough to cut through silence. He looked at Elara first. Then past her. Directly at Caelan. And something in his expression changed. Very briefly. Recognition. It disappeared immediately. Because someone in the palace ordered your disappearance before your power could stabilize. A pause. Then. They were afraid of what you would become if you remembered who you were too early. Elara shook her head violently. No, she whispered. No, that's not. He was just a pup. A broken child. I healed him. I raised him. Her voice broke mid-sentence. Because even she heard it now. The flaw in her memory. Not what she saw. What she didn't question. The cloth. The marking. The silence in the forest. The unnatural timing. Caelan stepped forward slowly. I was not a pup, he said quietly. Elara turned toward him instantly. Caelan, stop. But he didn't stop. For the first time, his voice carried something sharper. Not anger. Realization trying to form. I remember the snow, he said. Elara froze. The hunter's eyes sharpened. Caelan continued slowly. I remember falling, he said. But I also remember being carried. Silence again. Different this time. Heavier. More real. Elara shook her head. That's not possible, she whispered. But Caelan didn't look at her. He looked inward. Like searching through something buried too deep. There were voices, he said softly. Not yours. Not the pack's. The hunter exhaled slowly. That's the sealing memory fragment, he muttered. Elara turned sharply. What does that mean? The hunter hesitated. Then answered. It means he was never meant to remember the first years of his life. Caelan blinked. Slowly. Something inside him pulsed beneath his skin. The black markings reacted. For the first time. They did not just move. They responded. Like something hearing its name called. Elara stepped forward quickly. Stop talking to him like he's a weapon. The hunter's expression hardened slightly. That is exactly what the court feared, he said. Elara's breath caught. No, she said again. He is not a weapon. Caelan's voice interrupted softly. Then what am I? No one answered. Because the truth had become too heavy to hold cleanly. Darius finally stepped forward. His voice was quiet. Controlled. The heir of the Alpha King is not a political title, he said. It's a blood contract. Elara turned toward him sharply. Stop it. But Darius continued anyway. One that binds instinct, memory, and something older than identity. Caelan looked at his hands again. I don't feel like I belong to anything, he said. That statement hurt more than fear. Because it sounded like truth. The hunter took a slow breath. The problem, he said quietly, is that you are starting to awaken anyway. A distant sound echoed through the forest. Not wind. Not animal. something like pressure moving through space. The air itself seemed to tighten. Elara felt it immediately. Danger rising. Caelan lifted his head slightly. I feel it too, he whispered. The markings beneath his skin darkened. Elara stepped closer to him instinctively. Caelan, look at me, she said urgently. Focus on me. But his eyes were no longer fully present. Something was shifting behind them. Like a door opening slowly from the inside. The hunter stepped back. That's it, he said quietly. It's beginning. Elara snapped toward him. What is beginning? But before he could answer, Caelan collapsed slightly to his knees. Not from pain. From pressure. Like something inside his body had suddenly become too large to contain. The snow around him melted in a widening circle. The fire from Elara's cabin erupted outward. The wolves in the distance began howling in distress. Not warning anymore. Submission. Darius drew his blade immediately. Everyone back, he ordered. But no one moved fast enough. Because Caelan lifted his head. And the air around him cracked faintly. Not physically breaking. But reality bending. Elara stepped forward despite everything. Caelan, she shouted. His eyes flickered toward her. For a brief moment. He was still there. Still him. Elara, he whispered. And then, something inside him answered. The markings erupted beneath his skin like lightning trapped under glass. The hunter shouted instantly. It's activating, move. But it was too late. The forest went silent again. Then, the ground trembled. Not earthquake. Not wind. Something deeper. The sealed memory inside Caelan's body began unlocking. And the truth he was never meant to remember started waking up. Flashes hit his mind violently. Not dreams. Not visions. Real fragments. A large hall. Golden light. A man with a crown speaking his name. Fear. Pain. A voice saying, if he awakens early, the kingdom falls. Caelan gasped violently. His body jerked. Elara tried to reach him. But a force pushed her back instantly. Invisible. Controlled. Not aggression. Defense. The hunter stepped back further now. He's entering rupture phase, he said urgently. If he stabilizes incorrectly. Stop talking like he's not a child. Elara shouted. But the hunter didn't respond. Because Caelan was no longer fully conscious. His voice came out fractured. I remember, he whispered. Elara froze. Caelan's eyes opened fully. But they were not only his anymore. Something else was looking through him. I remember the throne, he said softly. Darius tightened his grip on his blade. Caelan continued. I remember falling from it. Silence shattered again. Elara's breath stopped completely. The hunter whispered one word. No. Caelan's voice deepened slightly. Not fully changed. But layered. Like two echoes speaking at once. I was not lost, he said. The wind stopped completely. I was removed because I woke too early. The markings beneath his skin flared bright black. The forest around them bent inward slightly. As if listening. Caelan looked down at his hands again. Then whispered. And I think I am waking again. The world did not respond. Because at that moment, it was no longer sure whether he was the child who survived. Or the heir the kingdom feared returning. The moment after Caelan whispered, I think I am waking again, did not end like a normal moment. It expanded. Silence did not return. It deepened. As if the world itself had been pushed too far and no longer knew how to behave normally around him. The snow stopped falling. Not slowly. Instantly. Frozen mid-air for a heartbeat before dissolving into nothing. Elara stood at a distance she could not remember creating. Her body had moved back without permission. Pure instinct overriding everything else. Darius had his blade half raised, but his hand was shaking. The royal hunter did not move at all. He was watching Caelan like a man witnessing a prophecy finally choose a face. And Caelan. Caelan was still kneeling. But not weak. Not defeated. It looked like something inside him was opening rather than breaking. The black markings under his skin no longer crawled randomly. They formed patterns. Clearer. Structured. Like writing returning to a forgotten language. Caelan's breathing was uneven. Not from pain alone. From memory pressing against sealed walls inside him. Elara, he whispered again. Her name sounded like an anchor. Like the only thing keeping him from drifting fully into something else. Elara forced herself forward one step. Then another. No, she said firmly, voice shaking. Stay with me. Don't follow it. Caelan lifted his head slightly. And for a brief moment. He looked like the child she raised. Confused. Lost. Terrified. I don't know what's happening, he said softly. The hunter spoke immediately. It has started fully now. Elara turned sharply. What has started? But the hunter's eyes never left Caelan. The awakening of the sealed air consciousness. Darius muttered under his breath. This is worse than we thought. Caelan suddenly flinched. Like something inside him answered that phrase. His body trembled once. Then steadied. Slowly. Too slowly. The air around him tightened again. Not aggressively. But like reality was adjusting distance from him. Caelan's voice came out lower. Different. Not fully changed. But layered with something deeper underneath. I can hear something, he said. Elara's heart tightened. What do you hear? Caelan paused. Then answered quietly. A place calling me. Silence followed instantly. Because everyone understood what that meant. The hunter stepped back slightly. That's not possible yet, he whispered. Caelan looked at him. For the first time. His gaze felt heavy. Not emotional. Not angry. Heavy like authority remembering itself. What is yet? Caelan asked. The hunter didn't answer. Because there was no safe version of that truth. Elara stepped forward again, refusing fear. Caelan, listen to me, she said urgently. Whatever is happening, you are still you. You are still the boy I raised. Caelan blinked slowly. Like the words were reaching him through water. I remember you, he said softly. Elara's breath caught. Hope flickered. But it died too quickly. Caelan continued. I remember snow, fire, your hands. His voice cracked slightly. Then. I remember being afraid before I even understood why. Elara shook her head. No, that's just confusion. But Caelan raised his hand slightly. And she stopped. Not because she was commanded. Because something invisible pressed against her chest. Not hurting. Just stopping her forward movement. Everyone froze. Even Darius lowered his blade slightly. Caelan looked at his hand. Confused. I didn't do that, he whispered. The hunter's expression darkened. That's instinct, he said quietly. Not control. Elara's voice shook. Control of what? The hunter finally spoke the truth without hesitation. Of the blood contract bound to the Alpha throne. The forest reacted immediately. A distant rumble moved through the trees. Not wind. Not storm. Something like the world exhaling after holding breath for too long. Caelan slowly stood. No struggle. No instability. Just rising as if gravity no longer fully applied the same way. Elara took a step forward instantly. Caelan, don't. But he did not stop. And for the first time. The markings on his body stopped being passive. They activated. Black light pulsed beneath his skin in structured patterns. Like a seal unlocking layer by layer. Darius stepped forward urgently. This is where it becomes dangerous, he said. The hunter nodded once. Yes. Elara turned toward them sharply. Stop speaking like he's not standing right here. The hunter finally looked at her. Because what is waking is older than his awareness, he said. Caelan tilted his head slightly. I don't feel older, he said quietly. That sentence made Elara's chest hurt. Because it sounded like a child trying to understand a language that was rewriting his thoughts. The air cracked softly. A pressure wave moved outward from Caelan. Not destructive. Revealing. Snow around him melted again in perfect circles. Trees at the edge of the clearing bent slightly inward. Not breaking. Reacting. Caelan closed his eyes. And for a moment, the world inside him opened fully. He saw the throne again. But clearer. Not dreamlike anymore. Real. Golden hall stretching endlessly. Figures kneeling. A crown hovering above a child's head. His head. But younger. Smaller. Different. A voice speaking. If he awakens fully, the kingdom loses its shape. Fear. Control. Decision. Then darkness. A hand pushing him away from light. Snow. Cold. A woman's silhouette crying. Elara. No. Someone else. But familiar. Caelan gasped sharply and staggered slightly. Elara moved instantly. Caelan. He lifted a hand again instinctively. She stopped mid-step again. But this time, it was different. The force was gentler. Not pushing her away. Protecting him from collapse. Caelan opened his eyes. And they were no longer fully golden. They flickered between two states. Child. And something else. I remember more, he whispered. The hunter exhaled sharply. This is the integration stage. Elara's voice shook. Integration of what? The hunter answered quietly. The Heir consciousness merging with lived identity. Caelan looked down at his hands again. They are not the same, he said slowly. No, the hunter agreed. They are not supposed to be. Darius finally spoke. So what happens now? The hunter hesitated. Then answered honestly. We don't know. That silence hit harder than fear. Caelan looked at Elara. And for the first time, his expression softened fully. I don't want to hurt anyone, he said. Elara stepped forward carefully. You won't, she said firmly. But Caelan shook his head slightly. I don't control all of it. The markings pulsed again. The forest responded instantly. Elara's voice broke slightly. Then I will help you control it. Caelan looked at her. Something fragile appeared in his expression. Hope. But also fear of losing it. You said that before, he whispered. Elara froze. And suddenly she remembered. Every night she held him as a child. Every time she told him he was safe. Every time she believed she was protecting him from something she didn't understand. I meant it every time, she said. Caelan stared at her. Then nodded slowly. I believe you, he said. That single sentence changed the air. The pressure around them eased slightly. Not gone. But stabilized. The hunter noticed immediately. His anchoring, he said quietly. Darius frowned. What does that mean? It means his emotional connection is stabilizing the awakening. Elara stepped closer. Then let him anchor here. Caelan blinked slowly. I don't know how, he said softly. Elara placed a hand over her chest. Then stay with me, she said. The wind shifted. Calmer. Caelan exhaled slowly. And for a moment, the markings dimmed. The pressure eased. The forest stopped bending. Silence returned. But this silence was different. Not fear. Balance. The hunter looked up slightly. It's stabilizing, he said. Darius lowered his blade completely. Caelan stood still. Breathing slowly. The flickering in his eyes reduced. But did not disappear. I can still hear it, he said. Elara nodded. Then we learn how to make it quieter. Caelan looked at her. You're not afraid. Elara hesitated. Then answered honestly. I am, she said. Caelan looked down slightly. But not of you. That landed deeper than anything else. The hunter stepped back slowly. This is not over, he said quietly. Darius nodded once. No, he agreed. It has just begun. Caelan looked toward the forest. Somewhere far beyond it. Something answered his awakening. A distant presence. Older. Heavier. Waiting. Caelan whispered softly. Something is still calling me. Elara stepped beside him. Then we will face it together. The wind moved again. Not violently. Not calmly, but forward. Like time deciding to continue. And in the distance, beyond the kingdom borders, the throne that had been silent for years finally began to remember its heir. The silence after stabilization did not feel like peace. It felt like waiting. Caelan stood in the clearing where reality had bent around him only moments before, but now everything looked deceptively normal again. Snow had settled. Wind had returned. The forest behaved like nothing extraordinary had happened. But nothing was the same. Elara could feel it in her bones. Darius felt it in the way he kept scanning the tree line. The royal hunter felt it in the way his hand never left the hilt of his weapon. And Caelan felt it everywhere. Inside himself. Like something vast had opened its eyes in the distance and was now looking back at him. I can still hear it, Caelan said quietly. Elara stepped closer immediately. What do you hear? He hesitated. Then answered. Not a voice, a pull. The hunter exhaled slowly. That's worse, he muttered. Darius frowned. Why? The hunter looked toward Caelan. Because a voice can be ignored, he said. A pull cannot. Silence followed. Heavy. Unstable. Elara placed a hand on Caelan's shoulder carefully. You are here, she said softly. Not there. Caelan nodded slightly. But his eyes betrayed him. Because he wasn't sure where there even was anymore. That night, the forest changed again. Not loudly. Not violently. Subtly. Too subtly. Animals began moving away from the valley. Not running. Leaving. Even wolves avoided the territory now, circling wide as if something inside the land itself had become wrong. Elara noticed first. She always noticed first. She stood outside the cabin, watching distant shadows disappear between trees. This isn't normal, she whispered. The hunter, who had refused to leave, stood behind her. It's reaction, he said. To what? Elara asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Caelan, who was sitting near the fire, silent, watching his own hands as if they belonged to someone else. To him, the hunter finally said. Elara shook her head. He's not doing anything. The hunter's voice lowered. That's the problem. Inside the cabin, Caelan suddenly flinched. Elara turned instantly. What is it? Caelan pressed a hand against his chest. I felt something move, he whispered. Elara stepped closer quickly. In your body? Caelan shook his head. Not inside me, around me. The fire flickered violently. Not from wind. From response. The markings beneath Caelan's skin faintly brightened again. The hunter immediately stood. It's starting again, he said sharply. Elara turned. Starting what? But Caelan suddenly stood up too. Fast. Too fast. His breathing changed. I didn't call it, he said quickly. The hunter stepped back. That doesn't matter anymore, he said. It's responding regardless. Elara's stomach tightened. Responding to what? The hunter looked at her. Recognition. The moment those words were spoken, the air outside cracked. Not thunder. Not storm. Something deeper. Like reality itself acknowledging a distant signal. Caelan staggered slightly. Elara rushed forward. Caelan. But he lifted a hand instinctively. The pressure stopped her again, but softer this time. Controlled. Not defensive. Guiding. Caelan's eyes widened. I didn't mean to do that, he said. The hunter's voice sharpened. You didn't have to mean it. Darius drew his blade again instinctively. Something is approaching, he said. Elara turned sharply. What do you mean approaching? The hunter looked toward the forest. Then answered. The kingdom just responded to his awakening. A pause. Then. They are sending retrieval forces. Elara froze. No, she whispered. He's not leaving anywhere. The hunter looked at her. That's not your decision anymore. Far beyond the mountains, the kingdom stirred. Not metaphorically. Physically. Royal corridors that had been silent for years now filled with movement. Sealed chambers were opened. Ancient records were pulled from forbidden vaults. And deep within the palace, a throne room that had remained empty since the heir's disappearance finally reacted. The throne itself cracked faintly. As if remembering pressure it was never meant to forget. A figure stood before it. Older. Clad in gold and shadow. The Alpha King. His hand hovered over the armrest of the throne, but he did not sit. Not yet. Because something had changed. The air had shifted. The bloodline seal had responded. And for the first time in years, he felt it. His son was awake. Back in the forest, Caelan suddenly dropped to one knee. Elara rushed instantly. Caelan. But this time, it wasn't collapse from instability. It was reaction. Like something inside him had been called harder than before. His breathing became uneven. I saw it again, he whispered. Elara held his shoulder. What did you see? Caelan's voice trembled slightly. A place, pulling me. The hunter stepped forward. That's the capital resonance, he said quietly. Elara turned sharply. What does that mean? The hunter answered without hesitation now. It means the throne acknowledged him. Silence hit instantly. Darius muttered. That's not supposed to happen until full awakening. The hunter nodded. It's early. Elara looked down at Caelan. Then we stop it, she said immediately. The hunter shook his head. You can't stop recognition. Caelan slowly stood again. Why is it calling me? He asked. No one answered immediately. Because the truth was too large. Too final. The hunter finally spoke. Because it remembers you as its rightful heir. Elara stepped back slightly. No, she whispered again. But Caelan didn't react like before. This time, he wasn't confused. He was listening. Deeply. Like something inside him had finally started making sense of broken fragments. I think, he said slowly, it knows me better than I know myself. Elara shook her head immediately. No, don't believe that. Caelan looked at her. I don't know what I believe anymore. That sentence hurt more than fear. Suddenly, the forest went completely silent again. But this time, Elara recognized it instantly. Not natural silence. Not fear silence. Arrival silence. The hunter reacted first. They're here. Darius stepped forward instantly. How many? The hunter's face darkened. Enough. Caelan turned toward the trees slowly. And for the first time, he spoke without confusion. I feel them. Elara stepped between him and the forest. Don't go toward it. Caelan looked at her. I'm not going, he said softly. A pause. Then. It's coming to me. The air fractured slightly. Then, from between the trees, shapes emerged. Not wolves. Not pack warriors. Not hunters. Something else. Armored figures bearing royal insignia. But their presence was wrong. Heavier. Like the kingdom itself had sent judgment instead of soldiers. Elara felt her chest tighten instantly. The leader stepped forward. And spoke one sentence. We are not here to retrieve the boy. A pause. Then. We are here to confirm the heir's survival. Caelan stepped forward slightly without realizing. Elara reached for him immediately. No. But he didn't stop. Because the moment those words were spoken, something inside him answered back. The markings beneath his skin lit up in structured sequence. For the first time. Not chaotic. Not unstable. Aligned. The royal envoy froze. It's confirmed, one whispered. Darius tightened his grip. Confirmed what? The envoy looked directly at Caelan. Awakened heir protocol has begun. Silence broke again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was inevitability. Caelan looked down at his hands. Then whispered softly. So I am not becoming something. A pause. I am remembering it. Elara's voice broke slightly. Caelan, stop. But it was too late. Because far beyond the kingdom, the throne responded again. And this time, It did not wait. It called him openly. And Caelan answered without moving. Not physically, but inside. And the world understood one thing clearly. The heir was no longer lost. He was returning.